Hello there, this is Dr. tadhg.blommerde, and I'm here today to talk about a presentation that I recently made. This was in the Working with GenAI series at Northumbria University, and it was called the Zero Academic Misconduct module. This presentation describes how I radically redesigned my research methods module, which is a level 5 module for business and entrepreneurship students and also international business management students, including those that are also studying a language. One of the key reasons for the redesign of my research methods module is the quality of cheating that happened last time the module ran. I think many students just went to ChatGPT, typed in write 1,500 word research proposal, and submitted the output without even proofreading it or checking it. And as you know, if you work in higher education, that inauthentic submissions for assignments are a big waste of time, especially when it's questionable whether a student understands module materials. Rather than moving to exam halls where students are unable to use computers or any technology, I thought, let's embrace the bots. The ability to use GenAI is increasingly being regarded as a key employability skill, and it's said that the proficient with Microsoft Excel claim that frequently features on graduate CVs will in the coming years be replaced by skilled at prompt engineering or prompt craft. Because many organizations are looking for graduates who are skilled in the use of GenAI, I decided to incorporate it into my module and teach students how to use GenAI more effectively and critically in both their studies and in their career. And I did this by blending it with existing research methods material. Students use GenAI in 6 of the 12 seminars in the module, where they're instructed how to use GenAI in various ways. This all builds towards a final assessment for the module, where students mark and critique a GenAI created research proposal. At the time of recording, this module is in week 7, meaning that 3 of the weeks have been completed, where students use GenAI for problem solving, for writing a literature review, and for writing a research proposal. The purpose of this video is to describe what happened in these sessions and hopefully provide ideas or inspiration for other educators who are considering integrating GenAI into their modules. Each week in the module is building towards the final assessment, where students mark and critique a GenAI created research proposal. For this, they're given a 500-word prompt that will generate a somewhat acceptable research proposal. The only part that they need to modify in the prompt is what they'd like the research proposal topic to be. Now, I have to say that students are getting creative with this already. They're considering which GenAI tool will write the highest quality research proposal, and they're thinking, depending on how much detail we enter in the squared brackets here, this will determine the quality of the research proposal the GenAI creates. And students have 2 strategies here. One where they enter something vague or ambiguous where the squared brackets are, and one where they enter a lot of detail. For instance, factors which determine which mobile phone a student at Northumbria University studying business and entrepreneurship will purchase. This should be an interpretivist, inductive, qualitative study involving interviews with students. For the final assessment, students use this template. In the first box, they enter the GenAI created research proposal that they're going to mark and critique. In the second box, they write their critique and mark for the research proposal, justifying any claims or statements in their mark and critique with materials on the module reading list. In the third box, they write a reflective statement on using GenAI for complex tasks, like creating the research proposal. Week 4 is the first time students use GenAI in the module, and many of them remarked to me that it was their first time using GenAI openly in the university. This is a shame, as not only do students feel they have to conceal their use of GenAI, but they're not given the opportunity to improve how effectively they use this amazing tool. The seminar in week 4 opens with a discussion of which GenAI tools are students aware of, and students are asked to think of as many as they can. It's clear that ChatGPT is the most popular, and students really struggle to identify more than that. I then provide an overview of some of the most popular and widely used GenAI tools, including Bing Chat, ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and Claude, and some of the lesser known and less popular tools as well, the number of which is growing all the time. The first time I delivered this seminar in week 4, it was observed by a colleague of mine. The comment was that there was a high degree of trust between the students and I. Students were asked about whether they had used GenAI to write some or all of an assessment previously. They were told there was no judgment and their answer would never leave the room. Students spoke openly about how they did with the assessment, and some described passing after submitting the GenAI output. One said they had used ChatGPT previously with an assessment and had failed. I asked them, what module was this? And they said, why, it was yours last year. It was really insightful to learn how students were using GenAI, what kind of instructions they were giving the GenAI for assessments. The core exercise in the seminar was to get a recommendation about whether a positivist or interpretivist approach would be most appropriate for a research problem. This was about how a career break scheme contributed to employment in some fictitious company. Students used the GenAI of their choice for the exercise, most selecting ChatGPT from the list. Though the purpose of the exercise was to get a recommendation for either a positivist or an interpretivist approach to the research, students found this very challenging. Often the GenAI would equivocate and give the advantages and the disadvantages of both a positivist and an interpretivist approach and fail to get off the fence, recommending either pragmatism or mixed methods for the research. Students and I then engaged in a discussion about what was good about the GenAI output, mainly that it was providing advantages and disadvantages, what was bad about it, the fact that it wasn't providing a definitive recommendation of either a positivist or an interpretivist approach, and we spoke about some of the drawbacks of using GenAI, which could include fake references, out-of-date information, wrong answers, a lack of creativity, a lack of critical analysis, and privacy or security concerns about what information was entered. One of the most interesting things that I learned from this exercise is that students tend to be very poor users of GenAI. Staff often feel that students are light years ahead of them and far more sophisticated users of these technologies, that they're more with it. So it was surprising to see that no student could get a recommendation for either a positivist or an interpretivist approach for the research. That was until the prep and edit framework was introduced. The prep and edit prompt engineer framework is taken from Fitzpatrick et al., The AI Classroom, the ultimate guide to artificial intelligence in education. Students were asked to try the exercise again, this time using the prompt engineer framework to organize and structure their instructions to the GenAI. And students thought about how could they clearly and unambiguously describe the purpose of the prompt. For the role, students thought about what they'd like the voice to be of the output, some options being I am an undergraduate student studying a research methods module, or I am a researcher investigating a career break scheme at a certain company. With regard to the explicit instructions, students thought about what they really wanted to ask the GenAI to do. So clear instructions about I would like a recommendation of positivism or interpretivism. Do not recommend mixed methods. Do not recommend pragmatism. You must select either positivism or interpretivism for this research. In setting the parameters, students entered the boundaries for the output. For instance, saying, don't write me a big long essay, just a short paragraph or limited number of words. They could ask for UK English, or maybe the degree of formality in which they wanted the output to be written. We then had a discussion about the differences and what was better between the second attempt and the first attempt. Happily, this time, many students had obtained a recommendation. In week 5, students used GenAI to write a literature review. The seminar was organized in a similar way to the seminar in week 4. First, students selected a GenAI of their choice, and then they used prep to structure and write a prompt that would get them the highest quality output possible. Again, students were allowed to use the GenAI of their choice. All of the options on this list have a sign-up time of less than 2 minutes. This time, before students wrote their prompt, they were given some more information and ideas about prep. It was highlighted to students that GenAI tools are not good at understanding nuance, so clear and concise commands to them were necessary. Students were warned to avoid vague or ambiguous language in their prompts. The importance was emphasized too of giving GenAI a role to give it a clear direction and purpose with the output. Supported by the prep part of the prep and edit framework, students wrote their prompts for the exercise. I was really pleased to see how quickly students were taking to prompt writing, informed by a framework, and already they were innovating and adapting with what they had learned. So for the role part, rather than saying, I am an undergraduate student, students were including really interesting things like, I am an undergraduate student who is a top performer or a high performer. I am on track to earning a first for my studies. The focus of week 6 was writing and evaluating a research proposal, and the session opened by students thinking of a topic that interested them that they could use the GenAI to write a research proposal about. They were asked to think about the purpose of the research question, what type of data they were going to collect and from whom, how they were going to analyze the data once they collected it, and if they had any ideas for a working title for the research. They were also asked to think about whether the study was positivist or interpretivist. If students couldn't think of an idea for an interesting research topic of suitable complexity for an undergraduate dissertation, it was suggested that they could use the GenAI to help them develop something based on an idea that interested them. Again, students selected a GenAI from the list and used this to write the best research proposal they could. The only instruction for the exercise was that students couldn't use the prompt that I had written from the final assessment brief. They had to write the prompt themselves. So the prompt might look something like, write a research proposal of suitable complexity for an undergraduate dissertation. I am an undergraduate student studying business and management. I am a high-performing student and I'm on track to earning a first for my studies. For the explicit instructions, students were given lecture slides and other materials and told that they could copy and paste in guidelines and advice for writing the best research proposal possible into the GenAI if they wished. With regard to the parameters of the prompt, students were starting to notice that GenAI tools weren't adhering fully to the instructions that they were given. So for instance, students who had tested out the prompt in the assessment brief were saying, hey, this is resulting in a research proposal significantly shorter than the 1,500 words required. So they were playing with the prompt and saying a research proposal no shorter than 1,400 words and no longer than 1,500 words. Even after these precise instructions, the GenAI was still writing research proposals of 900 words or even fewer. While greater attention had been given to the prep part of prep and edit in the previous seminar, this seminar gave more attention to the edit part. For the edit part, students evaluate the quality of the GenAI output. For instance, did the GenAI fully adhere to the instructions that it was given? What about the language style? Is it consistently US English or UK English? What about the word count? Students were also attentive to the structure of the output. They would then evaluate the accuracy of different claims and statements included in the GenAI output, especially where citations were fabricated or not included. In addition to evaluating the quality of the GenAI output, according to the edit part of the prep and edit framework, students also used this project proposal checklist to evaluate the quality of what the GenAI created. They evaluated whether the project the GenAI suggested was realistic and feasible for an undergraduate. They evaluated whether the research gap was clearly explained and justified, and that all methodological decisions were justified on their basis of answering the research question or achieving their research objectives. As part of this, they checked the credibility or legitimacy of references, and students thought about ways that they could have improved the prompt that they used. The idea behind all these GenAI exercises is that it's a one and done prompt, so it's not constantly going back and forth with the GenAI saying, can you fix up this? Can you improve this aspect? We want to include everything that we want the GenAI to do in a single prompt. Even though at the time of this recording, we're only 7 weeks into the module, it's obvious to me that students' ability to critically and responsibly use GenAI has definitely been improved. Students understand that GenAI can save them time, often by knocking out a somewhat acceptable first draft, but they're also more keenly aware of the limitations of this technology. They see that GenAI can't be used to write critically or analytically. It cannot use citations to support arguments, and in the coming weeks are going to see that it's impossible for it to write reflectively. Though the primary purpose of this module is to integrate GenAI and research methods teaching, I want students to be able to use GenAI beyond the classroom. In the coming weeks, I will show students how they can use GenAI to create marketing materials for their student enterprises, how GenAI can be used to write a brilliant cover letter by entering job specification or job description, asking GenAI to write a cover letter that is likely to get them an interview, and making additions to the prompt, such as ask me any questions that you need in order to improve the GenAI output. I will also show them how they can use GenAI to create a PowerPoint presentation using VBA code, that's Visual Basic for Applications, and also develop a market research questionnaire to help them understand customers for student enterprises. So far, so good. I think the module is working really well. I think that students are developing essential research skills and knowledge alongside critical thinking, problem solving, adaptability, in addition to responsible GenAI use. Though I might think that everything's going well, what do the students think? Well, I've given students an opportunity to provide feedback on the module anonymously through a GISC questionnaire. So far, it's been incredibly positive and insightful. I say to students that I'm very receptive to change with this experimental module and have made adaptations to it already based on their feedback. Students requested more practical examples of how GenAI could be used by businesses and students. They also wanted real examples of previous students' work so they could compare or contrast this to what the GenAI creates. Though some attention was given to university regulations and how students could avoid accusations of cheating or academic misconduct, students wanted to know more. They wanted to know about the views of staff to GenAI use and how staff approached checking work that was submitted. For this, attention was given to the academic misconduct policy at the university and all university information on how GenAI could be used by students was provided. I also shared an email with students from the faculty deputy pro-vice chancellor that described how staff were expected to respond to suspected cases of academic misconduct by students for using GenAI. At the end of this, students were a lot happier with how they could ethically and responsibly use GenAI for their studies in a way that would help them structure and organize their work, avoiding any accusations of cheating or academic misconduct. In the coming weeks, the module will be exploring how students can use GenAI for evaluating writing and how good GenAI is at this. GenAI will be used to develop a questionnaire that students can use for their dissertation or for market research. And also students will evaluate how effective GenAI is when it comes to reflective writing. My hope for this experimental GenAI informed research methods module is that it will provide ideas or inspiration for other modules in the program or other programs in the university. I'm promoting what I'm doing with the GenAI research methods module on YouTube and offering any interested viewers copies of PowerPoint slides, or the assessment brief. One of the interesting things that I've learned in the course of the last 7 weeks is that students don't want their program oversaturated with GenAI material. Several students said to me that they thought it was sufficient that using GenAI was included in just one module. So now I'm coming back to the question posed at the start of the presentation, the Zero Academic Misconduct module. Is it impossible to cheat on this module using GenAI? I don't know. But based on my conversations with the students, I think that it's very difficult. For instance, when marking and critiquing the GenAI research proposal, this requires engaging with key texts on the module's reading list and justifying any claims or statements in marking and critiquing the research proposal. And when it comes to the reflective statements, it's not possible for the GenAI to write something authentic and credible based on the experience of using GenAI for the module, providing examples, and referring to notable texts. I say to students, if you cheat on this module using GenAI and you pass, well, you deserve it. You're a proficient GenAI user and I've taught you well. Just come back and tell me how you did it. I'd love to hear about how you managed to cheat the module using GenAI. And that brings this presentation to a conclusion. I think my GenAI Research Methods module is a bold step forward in research methods education. I believe it will help prepare students for their future careers and make things easier for them now as they continue their studies, ensuring that they use GenAI ethically and responsibly. If I said or showed anything in this video that interests you and you'd like a copy, please get in touch with me through the email address in the description. I'd love to speak with you about how you can integrate GenAI into your module. I'm also interested in hearing any suggestions or comments that you have regarding my GenAI Research Methods module. And I'd like to promote what I'm doing as far as possible. Maybe you could help me with that. Like, share, or subscribe to this channel to increase the visibility of what I'm doing to others. Thank you for your time and attention.